ownership or day use of the facility. I think we talked about that.
He's actually my boss. That probably wasn't smart. Making a public space open to only those who can pay to be there. Westport does not have a large population with disposable income. I do not support land reclamation. Preservation of land, home for our creatures. Who are Westport LLC's investors?
You're looking at it. Right now, it's us. But as we get through this process, we have a multitude of investors lined up waiting to take part in this. So a lot of it's going to be driven by what we're able to do, and that's why we're going through this process right now.
What type of pesticides and what do you plan to do with runoff? I think we kind of talked about that. Environmental, chemicals and fertilizers, what quantities, how delivered? A beautiful way to benefit our land, our people, and our community. We'd be fools not to go ahead. Recreation, a golf course would greatly enhance youth opportunities for jobs and golf in middle school and high school. Westport needs amenities to attract visitors on a year-round basis. Westport needs economic development on a sustainable basis. Other best case time frame, we talked about that. Steps, milestones along the way include what? Peter just talked to that timeline and process. Will the limbs, that's not right. Will the something courses be in the exact location? Oh, the links. Huh. Will the links courses be in the exact location the previously planned course was to be situated? I'm not sure we know that at this time. Safety, how do you propose enforcing who is and is not supposed to be there, specifically homeless squatters who currently reside in the state park forest? Yeah, I think Miles could address that.
Just shout, Miles.
Well, it was so how do you propose enforcing who is and is not supposed to be there, specifically homeless squatters who currently reside in the state park forest?
Enforcing existing park rules on camping and recreating overnight in non-recreation areas. So enforcing existing rules.
And well, it was too much. I can't remember all of it.
So basically enforcing our existing rules within the parks. So same thing that we do everywhere else for that reason. What costs to people that live here? Will this program overwhelm the sewer? Will this require more law enforcement? Water park? Question mark. Traffic control? A new ocean shores? Question mark. Sanitation? Question mark. Excellent questions. We will address all of that. I don't think we need to speak to the new ocean shores, but yeah, that's part of what designing the master plan will be for. This type of habitat is increasingly threatened by development. It should be preserved and enhanced. A mature shore pine and spruce forest will help protect our shoreline from increasing coastal erosion. There is an extraordinarily rare plant documented to be in this area. Have you looked for it? Senicula arctopodes? I personally have not looked for it, no. Where's Linda?
We haven't looked for it here yet. I found it in other areas, but we haven't looked here. There are a number of species that we have to do surveys for.
Well, you've just ruined all of Linda's next several weekends, I'm pretty sure. So the answer, Linda is our steward, our Southwest Region steward, and our weed queen. You don't like that title, do you? Sorry. Our rare plant queen. And the answer is no. She has not looked for it at this particular park. She has looked for it elsewhere. How will the water table be protected from hundreds of pounds of chemicals that will be applied? We already covered that one.
Okay, master plan, skate park, pump track, event center. So that's one of the things that we, in our partnership with the city, is that, and as I mentioned before about being more open to partnerships with local communities. So those are the kinds of things that we can consider. And then we're also incorporating the property to the east of the state park property into the planning process. It doesn't mean that just want to make sure that people don't think the city is giving us that property, but that incorporating that into the planning process. So that gives us the opportunity to do more than just state park amenities, but also local park amenities. Other, will jobs be allotted for local people with the developments, or will they all be new incoming staff? I think that's, yeah.
Yes, I mean, it would have to be local. I don't know enough people that can come down here to work. So yes, it would be local.
Property taxes increase to homeowners. I think we talked about increase in tax revenues, but we didn't talk about property values and taxes associated with that. Do you want to address that?
Actually, I think better question for real estate folk in the room, because if you get more demand here, the prices will go up. I think that's a better question for our local real estate folks, but obviously if you have more demand for property, prices will tend to go up. But that's yet to be seen if it's a viable development, if it can be working, because if it is successful in being developed, at least a golf course as part of this, it's going to put more people into the area, more revenue, more tax-based revenue, and it will certainly have a demand and impact on local properties. If it's not viable, it won't.
Over 228 acres will be off limits for non-golfers. How will this promote mission of parks? And I think that we sort of talked about that. The idea is to integrate the golf and the state park into one cohesive experience. A golf course is not public access. It's only available for golfers. Does not meet the mission of state parks. Again. You know, and I'll say when Ryan and Craig came to talk to us initially, that was sort of our question for them too. And so for us, it really was the idea that this is a golf course within a state park, not the other way around. And so to us, that's one of the fundamental questions, and some of the things that Ryan and his crew have been saying, that this really supports this idea. This is really a state park with a golf course, and how does that all function together well? So lots of these, how can a golf course be compatible with state parks mission? Yeah. What will be the likelihood of an RCA, RBA area to go through a conversion process as stated in the realty proposal? That's a very specific thing about we have a deed of right on the property for how we purchase the property, which requires it to be used for outdoor recreation purposes. We don't believe that a development of a golf course on this site will cause a conversion or take it out of that use. So we don't believe a conversion would be triggered, but I'm happy to talk to whoever's comment this is to go over that in more detail. How does state park benefit financially? And I think this is a sort of all ships get floated by success of a golf course and the state park. So we have our Discover Pass, which would be in play here. We also have fees for camping and for other overnight accommodations. And so depending on how that master plan works out and the kind of amenities that we have here, the fees would be collected by state parks, and that would help us financially, or at least offset some of the costs. How will the final nay or yay be determined? Public voting, government decision, other. So again, and we are happy to have a few of our commissioners here, Commissioner Milner and Commissioner Dannenberg, who are going to be making some of the final decisions here. But it's their decision in the end. Once a master plan is completed, gone through the environmental review process, we bring that as a formal decision to the commission, and they vote. There's a 7-member board that makes the decisions for the state park system. Will the 37-acre project be incorporated to complement the Lynx golf course? And I think that's, I think the 37-acre carve-out area is a little deceiving, because that's really been set aside for intensive development. So if we're talking about lodges or other intensive development, that's where it would go. Not necessarily in that spot, but somehow sprinkled through the site, it would be limited to that acreage. Timeline and accommodations, we've gone through that. Other yes. Kids need fun in Westport, and it will boost jobs in Westport. Just a reminder for everyone, a fact on tourism. For every $100 spent on lodging, another $100 is spent in local economy. Okay, this one's a novel. Since January 1st, 2019, there have been close to 200 days when a link-style golf course would have been playable. Development of such a course involves little disruption to the environment and will make the entire South Beach a 12-month destination, as in Southwest Oregon. It means jobs, improved quality of life, and an incentive for additional business ventures, no-brainer. Elaborate on the process collected from leases and concessions. State the PRSA strategic plan. Let's see. So the specifics of a financial arrangement with the Westport LLC have not been arrived at. I think in general what we would be committing to is that this is not something that would cost the state park system money to do, and hopefully would generate revenue and in support, at least in the terms of additional usage of the park and fees that we would collect. So, but the intent here is that this is a partnership where the costs for the golf course would be borne by the Golf LLC, and the state park would be invested in the amenities that are state-related, and the city would be invested in amenities that are city-related. Years of projection, years of implementation. Correct. Need to know how this would affect long-term residences.
Wait, you need the mic closer to your mouth.
Need how this would, I think I'm now starting over again. Need how this would, need to know how this would affect long-term residences.
All right, we're really down to the last few. What do you anticipate happens to the deer? So one of the baseline studies that we would do to be able to inform the design would be a wildlife survey. We'd figure out what wildlife is currently on the property, what's using it, and how. Will there be a limit to how much will be developed, or if the golf course is successful, will more land use be proposed? My concern is environmental. The dune and ecosystem is already very fragile. So yeah, there's a balance that will need to be achieved during the design process. And again, not to be redundant, part of that is we need to understand what we have. What does that mean that our dune system is fragile? And what does having a golf course design on that mean? Well, we need to understand that so that we can design a course, maybe, that would not have those impacts. One thing that's important to remember is that it is our policy to try and offset any impacts that may result from a proposal. If we can't, that's what launches us into an environmental impact study so that we can better understand what those impacts are. But it's always our first line of defense to mitigate impacts. And the best way to do that is through design, intelligent design. Define Scottish Lynx environmental impact. We will. What chemicals, what impacts, draining, affecting wildlife? Yes to all of that.
Will local residents be involved in the final decision, or will it be just LLC and city government? The local residents' involvement would be throughout the entire master planning process, where your input is going to be gathered. So yes, you will throughout the process, but the final decision actually will be State Parks Commission. Other, how is Westport Golf LLC going to give back to our community? How will our taxes be affected? I feel like that was addressed. 9-hole course, 18, rates of city dwellers, how many days closed due to, keeping it low key, public, private, question mark, and tax. I think we've addressed those. Peter, you have something? Oh, okay. So I apologize. Jessica kept handing me the ones that were harder to read. So, so here you go, Jessica.
Past efforts to develop a golf course were forced to expend millions of dollars on environmental impact statements by local groups opposed to development. What is status of EIS? Well, we haven't gotten that far. We may or may not need an environmental impact study. As far as forcing the applicant to expend millions of dollars, one of the things, Ryan wasn't joking when he said he came and he met with staff and we tried to talk him out of this. Because we were around for the previous effort and we had our own concerns, and conceptually it seemed like it would be problematic. But one of the things that made us willing to bring this proposal back to the public is their willingness to do the deep dive on the environmental reviews. It wasn't like, we're going to make you do wetland studies and we're going to make you do wildlife studies. They're like, we want to do wetland studies and we want to do wildlife studies and we want to understand the topography and we want to understand the habitat possibilities and the potential for mitigation so that we can design a world-class golf course. So yeah, they're probably going to cough up some money if we move forward with this, but that's how we do our due diligence to make sure that we are bringing a proposal forward that balances recreation with resource protection. And it's not a guarantee that the project will be approved by our commission, but it is a guarantee that whatever decision our commission makes, it's fully informed about whatever the environmental impacts might be.
Can we just stop there?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Okay, we just have 5 more really fast ones.
I have 2.
And 2 more. So we're almost there. Want to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity to comment here. So if you haven't heard yourself reflected in these, then let us know. Master plan needs to be done before considering anything, including golf course. And I think we talked about this, is that we wanted to do an integrated approach to the golf course and master planning for the park. We need to go ahead with the master plan. Great opportunity for local economic development, a good plan to move forward. Other fire EMT additions, fire truck, ability to get in and out of the development. And those are all things that would have to be analyzed through the EIS process. Other, will Friends of Grays Harbor Fog be opposed to this from the start again? We think the golf course is long overdue and looking forward to using it. Algae bloom in Ocean Shores is due to runoff from their golf course. How would we prevent that? I think we talked about that.
All right, 3 more. The park investors and city need to understand the surfing community will suffer by bringing more people to an area that is already overwhelmed. What? All right. 2 more. What happens if the area is developed and not supported monetarily enough to maintain itself? Will there be a final project map proposal before it is approved? Who makes the final decision and when? Is there a timeline for completion? When? And I think that pretty much was answered throughout. Did you hear anything that we did not answer? Okay. So this one, I've read it like a million times. I don't know if I can do the number 2. So number 1, concern about habitat loss for wildlife and birds. Number 3, golf course is very land hungry. Number 2, chemical support for golf course, below the environmental health. But we might destroy the environmental health. Ooh, nice job. Chemical support for golf course might destroy the environmental health. Okay. So I'm gonna do a time check real quick. Yes, it is 8 o'clock. We did say we would do a count for those that were in support of and those that are not in support of. The question was, will we get rid of the Scots broom? And I would say that would be ideal. Okay, so we can do a quick raise of hands, and it's going to be really unofficial. Pardon me. And this is not necessarily a democracy. I am just going to throw that out there. Okay. It's just a matter of curiosity, perhaps. So those that are in support of a golf course here, Scottish Link style golf course, raise your hand. Okay. And we got waving hands too. Like that's like enthusiastic waving hands. You don't get extra points. Okay, so those that I don't know if should we do a pose or not? No. Okay. So just to highlight some next steps. Pardon me. I've got a waving hand.
I'd just like to make a comment. It's a point of fact.
Hold on.
I haven't heard this mentioned, but there are 3 state parks that exist now that have golf courses.
So Commissioner Milner has pointed out that we do have golf courses within our system currently. They are located, one is at Skating Lake on the Long Beach Peninsula. The other one is at Sun Lakes. And we have one in Bridgeport.
And what is the name of the one that just closed down?
That is the one that was in Bridgeport.
So there's really only 2 operating.
So there are now 2, that's correct.
Why did it close?
So that, I think you might be more involved on that.
Yeah, that's a property that we manage for the Corps of Engineers. And so that was a property that was constructed, a golf course was constructed by the Corps. And so that, over a period of time now, I gotta say that probably one of the contributing factors was abandoned dunes. Gamble Sands. And we had talked with about the potential of the folks at Gamble Sands taking a look at that golf course as well. But that was been running on a shoestring by essentially a small concessionaire for a long time, and we've kind of supported them and tried to keep them propped up, but it ultimately just wasn't going to be a going concern in the modern world of golf.
Well, and another thing to note, we are doing a planning process at Bridgeport now, and that's something that they are talking about what they're going to be doing next. Is golf going to continue there, or what are the priorities for the community? So the next steps are really outlined, and we've talked about it quite extensively. The next step would naturally be a master planning process and the appropriate environmental review, which is going to include a lot of public outreach and public process. So I know Peter and I had a conversation about hosting another public meeting. The room is very full. Is there interest for another public meeting here in Westport? Yeah. For more information. And we also will provide information on our website for this particular for Westport Light State Park, and so If you've signed in and you've provided your email, I'll send a link to where we'll post up-to-date information, comments that we receive, information that we have.
Will we be able to see this memorandum of agreement? Is that a public document that we can view?
It will be once it's created. Yes. So you can request, most documents are disclosable to the public, so you could ask for that document through a public disclosure request. And I could provide that information for you on how to do that.
Yeah, and so really this MOA that we're talking about is a process document that just says how we're going to work together to go through the planning process. So, and the other thing that Ryan and company have been made painfully aware of is that this process is under a microscope and that there is nothing that we're going to withhold from the public as we're going through this. So this is something that they recognize fully, that doing business with state parks means doing business with all of you.
So now we'll adjourn the meeting, but we're going to be hanging around. If you have questions and you want to engage with any one of us, please feel free to come have some conversation with us. And I do have business cards out on the table at the back. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.